Welcome to 5 and 5 from the One Stop Co-op Shop, where we discuss 5 key elements of a game in about 5 minutes. I'm Michael Kelly, and today we're looking at Quirky Circuits from Plaid Hat Games. No need for a disclaimer, I bought this copy myself. I gotta say, especially since Space Alert by Vlada Chvátil, cooperative programming has been one of my favorite things, although it's not used very often. So did Quirky Circuits nail down a programming formula for success? Let's find out and get to the list. We're starting with a mix right off the bat, although it tends to lean a little bit pro, and that's the components in the game. The miniatures in the game are adorable, but the B miniature has a flying base that will not fit inside of him unless you drill the hole a little bit larger. And looking on BGG, and certainly my experience, my base snapped trying to put it in, so that's not great. On top of that, 3 of the 4 miniatures are supposed to be able to hold the cardboard tokens in the game, but the things that are supposed to hold those tokens are too closed. But the big star on the positive side of the component show is the storybook. And this is the same as what you might see in Stuffed Fables or Aftermath, a spiral-bound booklet. But here it's not about walking you through a campaign, but each spread of pages has all the rules you need on one side, and a nice little board on the other side with clear setup icons for every element in the game. It makes setting up and playing and remembering the rules for the game a real pleasure. We have a full pro at number 4, a very specific element of the programming part of the game. I'll talk about the other programming later, and that's the yellow programming cards. The core mechanic of the game is that each player has a hand of cards, but they cooperatively play a row of cards to program what their robot will do. And the yellow programming cards throw a wrench in the mix in a delicious way, because when they're in your hand, you have to play them before anything else. This has the potential to totally throw off the flow of what your team is doing, but the cool thing is you know exactly what the possible yellow cards are, and there aren't that many of them, so you can often predict exactly what your other player is playing and adapt around it. It's a lot of fun. At number 3, we have another pro, but it could be a mix or a con depending on you and your group, and you're going to hear a lot of that for the rest of the review, but here we're focusing on the limited communication in the game. As I already mentioned, players are cooperatively playing a row of programming cards, but all those cards are face down, and the players aren't allowed to talk to each other at all. But each programming card indicates on its back what type of card it is, and each of the robots has a very specific distribution of cards, so there's actually more knowledge that the players share than it might at first appear. So for me, a fan of limited communication in general, this is awesome. It's a delicious piece of the puzzle. But if you hate limited communication, or if your group gets really frustrated when they can't talk to each other, this might be a deal breaker for you playing the game. We have another pro that could lean mix at number 2, and that's the variety of scenarios and robots in the game. Each of the 4 robots has a unique deck of programming cards, unique scenarios, and very specific objectives they're trying to attain. I love this variety in play, and I also like that each of the scenarios really amps up the difficulty and adds new elements so that you really learn how to be a master of this robot and tackle more and more difficult tasks. But some players might feel like playing one cat scenario after another, might feel repetitive. Some players might not see much replay value in playing the same scenario. I don't find that, but I can imagine it. Finally, we get to my number 1, a huge pro for me, but again could be a con for you, and that's the group programming itself. Something I absolutely love is the time element in the game. You have to play a minimum of 5 cards between all the players each turn, but you can play as many as you want, even potentially all of you emptying your hands. But of course, with all the cards played face down, the more cards you play, the more chaotic the programming becomes. Did they play a left turn? Did they play a 180-degree turn? You don't know. Did they move forward? Did they move backwards? It just really amps up the tension, but you need to play more cards than just the basic 5, because every turn, the battery counts down 1, and if you reach 0, you lose. So you have this constant push and pull of, let's do more, but if we do too much, we might totally screw up and do the opposite of what we wanted to do, and it's just awesome. I love the tension of playing the game, and it's so much fun. Or is it? Some people I've played the game with have been incredibly frustrated by the chaos in the programming and just wanted to kind of play all the cards themselves, and that can be a really negative look for things. So overall, Quirky Circuits is going to be one of those games that I absolutely adore, but I can't fully recommend for everyone. If you don't like limited communication, it probably won't work for you. If you hate chaotic programming, it probably won't work for you. If you really can't deal with some components not being quite right and having to fix them up a little bit, it probably will be a miss. But for me, Quirky Circuits is amazing. One of my top programming games of all time. It might even be challenging Space Alert for my favorite cooperative programmer. The game is so fun, so varied, has so much whimsy, and it's simple enough to play with my 7-year-old, but challenging enough at the higher levels to play with hardcore gamers. I just absolutely adore it. Good gaming, and we'll see you at the next stop.